Hello, everybody. It's Graham Coath with another My Music. Coming at you in the middle of the Thursday afternoon, which means that it's time to put down your Excel spreadsheets and whatever other crap you're working on today and listen to some talk about music for a little while. And that will be a good thing. First, a little message from our sponsors, the wonderful Analog Trash. And people were wondering how much they paid me to play that video. And I'll tell you, absolutely nothing. I just like doing it for the sake of it. Because, you know, it's all about getting independent music out there. And talking about independent music and doing it yourself, I have the wonderful Låpsley joining me today. Where are you coming from?
Stoke Newington,
right.
in London. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, well, that explains you struggling to park and why we were a few minutes late. I regularly actually have that problem on this program, which is that people are struggling to park. I think it's maybe it's something that's inflicting musicians all over the country at the moment is finding decent places to park and navigating the traffic, which seems to be getting worse and worse and worse out there. Do you not think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually got here at 10 to, but I had to park so far away because there wasn't spaces that I just had to walk the whole way round.
What is life coming to? Dear, oh dear. Make public transport better. That's what I say.
I know. To be fair, I shouldn't have a car. But I have so much equipment at the moment. I'm just constantly moving between the lockup and the studio and the home. So,
are you a bit of a tech geek when it comes to things? I'm assuming that you are to some extent.
It's funny because I surround myself with bigger nerds. So
right.
I guess maybe yes. But I think I've kind of moved away from like the driving seat and moved more towards playing like a vast amount more instruments and having a more like executive producer role, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more organic, whatever that word means. Now listen, I initially found your music in FOP in London many moons ago when this little beast came out.
Oh yeah.
What a lovely photo that is of you. And I'll be honest with you, I was actually looking for a Solar Jesus album at the time, and then I saw that, and because obviously it was like a white cover with a female on it, I thought, oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's your Solar Jesus album. But no, it wasn't. It was yours instead. So I asked them to put it on in the shop, which of course FOP very kindly did. And then I went, no, I'm actually going to go home with that. So sorry, Zola, you kind of missed out on the day. But it was tremendous. I mean, obviously one of your early things was playing with your voice on recordings.
Yeah.
What got you into that? What you know, when did you sit down one day and go, actually, I could sound a little bit like a man and a woman?
I think when I first started making music, I felt restricted by just my voice. And I started to make those kind of decisions before anyone got involved, like management or label. And so it came very natural to me to just experiment in that way because there was no rules. Yeah.
Which is great though, isn't it? I mean, you know, experimenting in music is fundamental for pushing music onwards as well, though. You know, were people giving you great feedback about that at the time as well and saying, well, oh, never, I've heard people do this before, but perhaps never in the way that you were doing it?
I definitely feel like it was quite defining of my sound quite early on, which is like a blessing and a curse, because in some ways
then you've got to live up to it.
You to do it on every track, but you don't want it to become a gimmick. And I like the idea of, because often when I'm writing about like relationships and stuff like that, it's involving like two perspectives or two points of view. And I think the manipulation of the voice is like a good way to show the different sides. That's kind of how it started anyway. Yeah.
Do you think in a way it's kind of reflective of other things in society anyway? You know, because tech is going that way on things like social media, etc. You know, we now got Chat GPT, for goodness sake. You know, we're kind of, tech is all about kind of manipulating the kind of human experience and sort of putting it through a robot, as it were, and seeing what comes out the other end. So in a way, do you think you were kind of there, as it were, technology wise, in terms of what society was playing about with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a huge electronic music fan, and I come from that space. There's decisions that I make now, like to do with what I decide digitally, what I do analog, and it's definitely like purposeful. And like I definitely went through a phase of like quantizing a lot of things, which I guess to some of the listeners that don't know, it's basically where you knock things into place. So it's yeah, and you take away quality, but like I've now decided only to do that if like as a stylistic thing. So I quite like the human quality of just that one recording off the bat, like trying to get it you know, as good as you can to the BPM. So
yeah, I mean, you say you sort of birthed in electronic music. Is that what you listened to in your house when you were growing up? What was on the radio?
What was on the radio? I mean, it was like I was obsessed with the. I used to listen to Radio 1 all the time. My parents, well, my dad was like a teenager in the 80s, so they were like big Smiths fans and just big northern indie. Well, it was pre-indie, but like big northern angry bands. Yeah, and then mum was like super whimsical and Kate Bush and Björk. So between the two and the charts, I'd always had this.
Oh, you got a little bit of both. You got a little bit of all of those, didn't you? Really, kind of thrown in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. When did you first discover that you had a voice?
I was always like interested in music, so I started to play instruments from like 5, and then I was like in the school choir and did loads of I was a bit of a thespian, so did loads of like school musicals and stuff. I was like the lead in the school musical.
That's always good for the confidence, isn't it?
Yeah. I was such a drama baby. Like I wanted attention, but in a very like theatrical way. Yeah. I do think though that I've kind of over the course of the albums like showcased my voice a lot more recently, and I think that's just a confidence thing and a love of the sound of choirs and realizing, oh well, I can just record myself 60 times and we've created a choir. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're talking about other albums, of course. There was this one where you immersed yourself in water for a little while, which I think has got something to do with your father, has it not?
Yeah, he works in water. Yeah,
which is a massive subject, and something that, you know, too many of us don't really understand quite the impact of water, which you quote and talk about on there. But what was the driver behind that then?
I mean, there's two sides to that album. One is like through water as a metaphor, like feeling suspended between many things, like between childhood and adulthood, and between I say when I talk about the album, like feeling like you're constantly like treading water in your 20s. So that idea of being suspended. But then the other side to it is like having this very unique experience of being being submerged in a childhood, talking about climate issues and water, and visiting canals and seas, and my dad just like talking about, you know, the development plans of like certain areas and flood risk. And I was just fascinated, and it was geography that I was meant to study at university, but I'll just turn that on silent. Before I did music full time. So
Yeah.
it was.
And we've now transitioned to this, which is you wearing a very bright pink coat, which actually I think we're nearly there with the
There's a lot
with the surroundings for this show. As you say, I mean, certainly there's an element of playfulness that comes out on this, which wasn't there in the beginning, and with your voice as well. Yeah, I can hear, having been a vocalist, that you're really allowing the sort of nuances of your voice to come out a little bit more on this as well. It feels like this is more you singing raw on this than initially.
I think I'm exposing a lot more than that vocally, and I feel ready to do that. Like, I'm a bit older, I'm a bit more confident, and I've decided to maybe reveal a lot more than I have other albums. It's a bit more direct. So yeah, this is this part of my
so this is exciting. This is exciting times for you. Is it in terms of this album? Is there a track on here that you feel personally closer to than anything else?
I think Nightingale. It's definitely one of the most different tracks on the record. It sits in more indie space, and I'm playing guitar, and there's some live drums, and it's a lot more of like fuller sound. And it's a love song, and it's about like obsession, and for me it's my favorite track on the album. I love performing it. So
yeah, I noticed on Twitter, sort of as this album was developing, that you like to kind of pose with your guitars, etc. a lot. You seem to be having an awful lot of fun sort of immersing yourself in those instruments. Were you discovering sort of things that you could do technically that you hadn't kind of done before as you were?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was definitely more collaboration on the album than the previous two. For example, Greg Abrahams, the producer that I worked with in South Africa, was like an incredible guitar player, and so
that pushes you.
Yeah, it pushes me. Like, I'm an okay guitar player, but a lot of things like people, I guess, didn't know about me and instruments that I could play. So this was an opportunity to showcase that. And I also work as a writer and a top liner, so I write a lot of music for the people, and I often pick up a guitar or play the drums in a session. And then I was wondering about how I'd fitted myself in this very specific box for Låpsley, but then obviously let myself run free for when I'm writing for anyone else. So I tried to challenge that.
Yeah, I think people who aren't music, aren't actual musicians, don't quite understand that sometimes. That it's a bit like I suppose the analogy for a lot of people out there would be it's the same as sports. If you always play at the same level, you never develop. So it's good to surround yourself with people that play up there. You learn those little things, you learn those little tips and tricks as people go along. They don't want to show you everything because that would be giving the game away. But occasionally they sit down with you and go, "Do you know what? If you actually do it like this, you'll find that you can do this." And then you're like, it's just opened up a whole new world to me. Thanks.
Yeah. But sometimes it's like, because I've not like mastered the instrument like Greg say, there's like an element of like creativity that comes with the naivety, and I wouldn't be able to play, say, something as complex, but there'd be something within mistakes or something within the haphazardness of setting it up, which I may like sonically and put that in. So I think It's like when you work with a pianist who's just like incredible. They almost know too much.
Mm.
And would find it really hard to write a song around like C, G, A minor, F, like something really simple.
Oh, totally. No, yeah, I managed a band at one point, and there was a guitarist in that band who was so proficient, could play anything. But when I asked him to write a passage for a song or whatever, he would just like, no, can't do that, And I just think sometimes you get that, there's obviously exceptions to the rule. There were people like Prince, etc., who could play anything and was incredibly creative and prolific in his writing as well. But it does come down a lot of the time. You find that there are people that are masters of their instrument.
Yeah.
But actually, ask them to write a song, they get lost. It's kind of like, it's almost like they, as you say, they know too much about the sort of theory, etc., to then just let go and go, I just wonder what happens if I just hit that.
Yeah.
The sonic bit, even when you're at school, I don't know, did you study music?
No, I had a lot of like music lessons for different instruments, but no, I was too busy doing geography and science.
Yeah. And when you were learning instruments, did you used to get that from teachers at all, that where they said, and you can't put that chord with this?
Yeah, there's certain rules. I mean, when I talk to young people, I've done lectures and stuff, I always talk about how, a good writer has the instrument, but they've mastered how to make their own creativity like thrive, like the environment that supports that, rather than the intricacies on the instrument.
Yeah. Well, your dad would appreciate that, being a Smiths fan. If you ever read Johnny Marr's book, he talks about that in there. He says how, one of the things that he really strived for was kind of breaking the rules when it came to songwriting and sort of putting chords, next to each other. It was like, if someone tells me I can't do it, I'm going to do it, and that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how change is made, really.
Yeah, that's what pushes it on. So what for you, the next challenge musically, do you think?
It's funny because I've recorded basically like 2 EPs already, alongside this album, and one of them is like 6-part string and piano, like a classical EP, around water, which at some point I'd like to put out. I've also started some work on the next album, but I think that I want to do something a bit more orchestral.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah,
that was the next thing coming. I was going to say, because to me, your sound feels like you'd like to kind of continue to develop that on, and taking it from the beginnings, where I think it was probably you, and it was what gadgets you could get in front of you, and as I say, just putting that all down yourself, and now you're opening it up to other producers and musicians to come on board with that. The kind of logical step for you in a way is an orchestra. Somebody make an orchestra available to this lady right now, please.
I contacted the Royal Northern College of Music, so I'd hopefully like to do something with young people. That's the goal.
Fantastic. Can you orchestrate yourself?
No, I'd work with an orchestrator.
Okay. A friend of mine's quite good, Troy Miller. He's worked with people like Laura Mvula, and he was Amy Winehouse's drummer.
I think.
Well, there you go. Perhaps we should put you in touch, Troy. If you're watching, Låpsley would like to do some orchestration on her next. If you can get the Philharmonic in, please, that would be fantastic.
Very
You also, in the middle of doing this last album, you also went back to school.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
I mean, classic me. If I've got any spare time ahead of me, I'll just fill it.
You filled it.
And I never really had time to go back to uni. Well, I never went to uni in the first place. So I did a year of politics, philosophy, and economics at Goldsmiths. And don't have the time or resources to go back to uni and finish the degree, but I've learned so much from just 1 year within the uni, that it's kind of meant that I now dedicate like a portion of time in the day towards like my own personal education. Yeah.
Did you hang out with other students? You just
Yeah, they were a lot younger.
was it a bit odd? Did you ever go on karaoke nights? That's what I want to know.
I had 2-day hangovers and they somehow waltzed the next day. I definitely couldn't hack it.
Yeah. But actually, was it quite interesting immersing yourself in that kind of subculture of student life to some extent as well? Was it different from what you thought it was going to be? I mean, did you feel that sort of education had moved on from perhaps when you were younger?
Well, this was my first experience in like a university setting, and I definitely thrived within, the lectures and the seminars and that kind of setup. I think university experience in general has changed a lot since like my peers at my age went like 8 years ago. And so I think I expected a certain kind of experience and realized that time has swiftly moved on. There wasn't as many like clubs and like indie music nights as like I thought there would be. Because when I grew up in Liverpool, there was always loads of parties thrown by students. Like that was the hub of music and electronic music and ambient music. And there to be the ability or the funds for people to do that the same way now. Also, a lot of the venues have been snapped up, and high rates and stuff. So, yeah, that was a bit sad. But
yeah, would you like to go into academia at some point in your career? I mean, there's a number of musicians that have come to talk to me on here. Yeah. I had John Stewart from Sleeper speak to me a few weeks back, and he's now head of music at BIM. Down in Brighton, is that maybe somewhere on the path at some point, do you think? Are you an academic at heart? Would you like to write books?
I think I'm probably more likely to go into that cross section of like broadcasting and journalism.
Okay.
And I'm very interested in local politics as well, and did quite a bit within that. So I think,
well, we could do with you as Prime Minister. I mean, quite frankly, we couldn't do any worse, could we, than we've had. So, no. We could certainly do with someone with some brains going into politics. Sorry, did I say that?
You can do
that. But yeah, so politics interests you, and maybe that further down the line. What do you listen to in terms of music? Are you an active listener of other people's music? What sort of things are you putting on your record player at the moment?
I mean, it's cool because I do so much writing for the people. I almost have homework
overload.
I have overload. I'm working with so many young new musicians. I've got to stay on top of New Music Friday on Spotify. So that's like homework that I have to get through, because it's like 30, 40 tracks, whatever. I mean, on the records that I always go back to like Caribou, Our Love.
Lovely.
I always go back to Graceland. There's certain albums that I'll always put on my vinyl player as like a bit of a break and a turn off, and it's usually something that's like super.
Yeah. Do you ever think about when you listen to those albums, that, because we've all got them, those albums that you go back to sort of time and time again, you try to put them down in a way, because you want to listen to lots of new music, and you're sort of, something will catch your ear, and then you go to that piece of music. But those albums that keep drawing you back, and you go, do you know what, that album's going to make me feel like this today, and I need to listen to that album again. Or that it's an album that's just going to draw out something that you just haven't heard. It's a comfort blanket. Do you ever sort of, when you're listening to that, go, that's what I want to achieve. I just really want to make an album that someone goes, that is an album that people just want to listen to again and again and again.
It's hard because like albums mean a lot to people often because of like the circumstance in which they listen. So I always go back to like Bombay Bicycle Club, A Different Kind of Fix, and
brilliant. Yeah.
Total Life Forever by Falls, because they kind of sum up my teenage experience, and I feel quite reminiscent of that when I put it on. I guess I've tried with the albums that I've made to create like a narrative and a body of work that makes sense, that hopefully if someone weeks, they'll remember that in the future, like that intense time when you first, have access to an album and you listen to it far too many times to the point where you hate it. And then you always come back to it, if it means something properly.
Total Life Forever. I've got a great story about that, which is that I was, when I first bought that album, and I had it actually on I had it on an iPod. Yeah, that's old technology, folks. Yeah. Which I had in my pocket because I'd been listening to it on the train, and I went to do, at the time I was doing workplace assessments, nothing so glamorous as I don't do now, and so I was in a Lloyd's bank where I was doing workplace assessments, and I was in the toilet, and I thought, shit, Lloyd's are really great. They're actually playing Foals in the toilet. And then I realised that it was actually coming out the speakers of that I had attached to my iPod. So everybody else got to hear the Foals in Lloyd's toilet, which is great. But I was disappointed in a way that Lloyd's Bank weren't that cool.
Yeah.
But, for 1 second I thought that they really dig the Foals, which said maybe they do. I might be slating them unnecessarily.
They don't want to press people think.
But that was an album, and I have to say, actually, I'm going to put you on this. I'm going to put you on the pedestal. That was an album, the same as yours, that I really enjoyed listening to over and over again. And part of it was because actually they really work well on a train. And I don't know whether you get that, but sometimes, if you're traveling and listening to music, I just feel that if you find that it really kind of helps you with that journey, that physical journey, it really kind of cements into you as well. So thank you for that. I've listened to you many a time from Crewkerne to Waterloo on the South West Railway. But yeah, do you find that it's, actually there's something about actually sort of traveling and listening to music as well. But for many times I've heard people on the show as well say that, if there's a piece of music that they can listen to while they're driving, they kind of imagine other things whilst listening to that music. It kind of takes them into different spaces. Don't do it to the point where you crash, though, folks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I spend so much time within the day traveling, whether it's like to and from the studio or whatever. It's either Radio 4 or I'll put an album on, really. I think is it Lord's second album, Melodrama?
That's brilliant.
That's a great travel album.
Yeah. When it's great because you just keep pressing play it again. Or you just let the CD or whatever go round and round and round. These days, of course, everything's digital, so people don't even know what CD player is. Probably. I was showing people one of these the other day. Do you know tapes? Now you've got tapes out, haven't you?
I'm selling a lot of tapes and CDs at the moment, so I'm wondering what's happening, or whether my fan base is just over 40s.
No, I don't think so. I think the physical formats of music are coming back, and I think the reason that they're coming back really is because there's an element of I think people with COVID. Now you can correct me and say that I'm wrong with this, but I think with COVID, people kind of re-examine the kind of physical element of all of our life in a way. And I think we all kind of realize that it's important to sort of stop and actually take a moment to do things.
Yeah.
Right. And what I mean by that is, the thing is with listening to music digitally, it's brilliant. I think it's great that you can put a dot in the middle of your room and whatever and just shout at it. Although you do have to shout at it sometimes in order to get it to play what you're like. Play Låpsley, playing Donna Summer. No.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't require you to actually stop and physically do something, which means that you pay your full attention to it. And I think people are beginning to go back to that in lots of different areas of their life, where they're actually going, no, do you know what? I need to set boundaries. I need to actually make some time for this.
Yeah.
And it's important that I actually, if I've got that, then I'm going to actually physically have to go and turn it over at some point. The same with vinyl.
Yeah. Well, it's a tangible thing, and I think people do a lot more kind of respect and mindfulness, like an awareness of the fact that it's like a body of work that someone's made when you have something physical. And also, like with a vinyl player and someone who loves vinyl, I just the act of taking it out the sleeve, put it on and turning it is something that is quite like soothing and relaxing for me.
Yeah.
And vinyls are expensive and you've invested in it. So
yeah.
And
I mean, you must have noticed it, that the proliferation on things like Twitter of people that are like, I'm playing this today, and it gets lots and lots of likes, doesn't it? If they physically get like the album out and you see the album going around, and in a way that is fantastic promotion for artists, because if they can get people like showing off their bright pink or bright red vinyl going around and whatever, everybody else is like, yeah, well, and I want one of those because I want to support that artist as well. It's great. Even things like t-shirts. You doing t-shirts as well?
Yeah, I've got some merch, for this.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely right. I actually suggest to every artist that comes on here that one of the things they ought to do is get t-shirts with printed on the back, I listen to whoever on streaming services, and then list the streaming services, but I paid X amount for the t-shirt, so I'm fine. Yeah, see, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. And I've had a couple of people do it already, which I think is good. But for me, it's literally about that. It's saying I'm fine with actually saying that I listen to my music for free, but I have invested. So therefore, I don't feel guilty about it. I've paid the artists their due for the work that they've done, and that's important, And I think, to some extent, I feel that artists are beginning to look for really clever ways of kind of combining their music with other forms in order to monetize it, in a way, to put the money back into it. I mean, I've had Christian Hirsch on here, who released a couple of her albums as books, rather than she got a book contract. She released them as books, gave the music away with the book, which I thought was genius. So she got to #1 in the book. Yeah. I've had several artists that have released their albums as part of an art exhibition. Are you ever looked at things like that as well? For maybe how I could maybe do a piece of work and actually relate it to something else?
Yeah, definitely. I'm finishing a poetry book at the moment, which I've been working.
Oh, fantastic.
So hopefully that'll come to fruition. I think it's just about piecing the visual world of what is the visual world of the album as well, making sure everything makes sense. I'm enjoying the merch, and even when creating the packaging, working with the art director and the graphic designers and creating anything tangible for the album has been such a process and a journey that I've learned a lot. But yeah, I think if I was going to go down any route, it would be more of the literature, the book, poetry kind of link. Yeah,
which is great, because people are multifaceted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I've in a way that's always been there. We've always seen that. You mentioned I think you mentioned the Rolling Stones earlier. I mean, you know, we know that the Rolling Stones, you know, various members of the Rolling Stones can paint. You know, Joni Mitchell was a fantastic painter, you know, as well as a musician. And so it's always kind of been there. But I just think a lot of younger artists are finding the way of trying to pull that together right from the start, in a way.
Yeah, but I think a lot are quite like multifaceted. You know, we've got a lot of different transferable skills, and it is sad that we can't just make music from one thing. I mean, I obviously work as a writer as well, and there's a holistic benefit because it takes the pressure off me just constantly writing about myself. But there's also like a financial benefit for that, and the pressure not being on the artist project to pay my bills and, you know, all of that.
Well, and look, all of us are multifaceted. I do other things as well. I mean, one of the shows that I talk about, not just music. Tomorrow I shall be doing ergonomics, which a lot of people don't have a clue what that's all about. And actually, I was asked to ask you, is your ergonomics okay there? I mean, you work with a laptop quite a lot. Do you make sure that you look after yourself in terms of...
There's an ergonomic chair in the studio.
Right. Well, what I want you to do as well is I want you to send me your address so that we can actually send you some ergonomic gear as well.
That's
all
cool.
Right, for your laptop. Yeah, because that would be good, wouldn't it? So that, you know, we make sure that, you know, Låpsley is standing up for the next. Now you've got some little gigs coming up, which is great.
Yeah.
Around the country. If you want to just mention those, I know you're coming kind of our neck of the woods, Bristol. Mm-hmm. So you're playing Trinity, which is a great place because it's a church basically that's been converted.
Yeah, so we've got the UK tour in March and then the European tour in April, and I'm playing Trinity, where I played on my first UK tour. So it'd be nice to come back there again. And I recently was at Rough Trade in Bristol and I did the show and the signing there, and it was such an incredible
That's
crowd.
A brilliant venue as well, isn't it? I mean, the crowd's right in your face, but it's
so impressed.
Yeah, lovely. And you know, I always like doing gigs in record shops because there's lots to look at. I mean, it's like, can I get a private viewing of the record store whilst I'm there, please? You know, you spend like all of the time before the gig actually going through all the records and picking out all the bargains.
I did a bit of a deep dive. I got in the sale, there was Benjamin Britten Ceremony of Carols. So like I got some random things that I would always get on vinyl.
You see, Brucey bonus for doing it in a record store. Fantastic. So you're doing Bristol. Where else are you going briefly? Do you know?
In the UK, yeah, we've got London, Sheffield, Manchester, Newcastle, Glasgow.
Cool. And all of that is on your website. I know that because I looked.
Possibly.
So if we'll put the link to that in here afterwards anyway. So go and have a look, people, on the Låpsley site. If you haven't ordered any of the merch or the album itself, why? But do that as well. Spend some money and get a little bit of that in your life because that will make you much happier. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. You know, and obviously I wish you all the best with the future, but you won't need it because you're an incredibly talented young lady who makes some fantastic music. So from everyone that's out there who has listened to your music in the past and really enjoys it, thank you for doing what you do. Just keep on doing it for us, please. You know, that's really important. Are you on Bandcamp as well?
I think some of my old catalogues on Bandcamp.
There you go. So for any of those that have got a Bandcamp account, you know, fill your boots as well. There you go. This has been Graham Coath speaking to Holly, also known as Låpsley, because she uses her middle name. Yeah. I'm never telling you my middle. Well, I may be off air. I might tell you what my middle name is. But until next time, this has been us talking with my music. If you have enjoyed this, if you enjoyed a person wittering on to someone that knows better for half an hour or so, please do subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, that's tough luck, and you probably won't watch it again. But until next time, thanks for now.
Amazing. Thank you.